your prime directives.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Martine McCutcheon shares the secrets of her successful life after soap on ITV2 tonight at 11.
Finance ministers meet as world stock markets plummet. Buyers insists new job-saving bid for Rover is serious. And Solskjaer grabs two as United close in on the title.
From ITN, the ITV Weekend News with Mark Austin.
Good evening. Finance ministers from the 7 leading industrial nations are meeting now in Washington, facing an unexpected problem: huge stock market falls. The ministers, among them Britain's Chancellor Gordon Brown, have gathered the day after a record drop on Wall Street. The biggest losses were in the technology and internet stocks. That's already had an effect in the Far East, and there are warnings London will be next. Here's Ben Scotchbrook.
Tonight, Gordon Brown is discussing the world's economy at the annual IMF summit in Washington, and one issue has forced its way to the top of the agenda. Ministers must address yesterday's record plunge in America's share prices and the aftershocks already being felt around the world. Taiwan's stock market opened for business today, and shares there also suffered a record drop. And while London's prices started to fall yesterday, the fear is the worst is yet to come. All traders can do here this weekend is wait for Monday.
A lot of London shares were quoted in the States, and whilst they'd fallen in London, they carried on falling after London had closed on Wall Street. And that's going to come through on Monday morning. We're going to see at least as big a fall again on some shares.
When the Dow did close in New York yesterday, traders there were left contemplating a dreadful week of dealing, culminating in a record one-day fall of 616 points. The cause? Poor American inflation figures, sparking fears of a rise in interest rates. The effect? Speculators watching helplessly as their interest slumped before their eyes. The worst hit shares have been the technology stocks, including the dot-com companies, and their fall may be the bursting of a bubble. But experts said today people with wider share interest, be they through ISAs, PEPs or pensions, shouldn't panic.
Most professionals tend to use sharp falls in share prices as an opportunity to buy stock. So I would say that at the moment, my expectation is that sharp falls would be followed by an equally rapid recovery.
But the expectation is there will be sharp falls first, wiping millions of pounds off UK's share values. Ben Scotchbrook, ITN.
The Trade and Industry Secretary Stephen Byers said today that BMW had assured him it will give careful consideration to an alternative bid for Rover. It's already won the support of the unions, who believe it could mean fewer job losses at Longbridge. Terry Lloyd has the details.
The new bid for the Rover car company was top on the agenda when the Birmingham task force gathered for its latest crisis meeting. The Trade and Industry Secretary said the proposal, called the Phoenix Project, was being taken seriously by BMW. The man behind the Phoenix plan is John Towers, a former chief executive with Rover. Now head of the West Midlands components company Concentric, he's written to the German car company outlining his scheme to keep the Longbridge plant as a volume car producer and to save many of the jobs under threat.
We haven't seen the details of the John Towers bid yet, but we've always made it clear that we want the maximum number of jobs to be retained at the Longbridge site. I hope the BMW will give serious consideration to the bid that has now been made by John Towers, and I hope that through all of this we'll get an outcome which secures jobs at Longbridge.
Union leaders also made it clear they favour the new plan.
From our point of view, we're in the business of maximising the jobs and minimising the redundancy, and we believe that the Towers bid deserves proper examination.
A spokesman for Alchemy Partners, the venture capitalist company based here, who've already drawn up plans for Rover, described the rival bid as a doomed strategy. He said it would recreate a non-viable car company, which in the end would lead to even more redundancies. And a member of the Phoenix consortium admitted they faced a long, hard fight.
the message of support is we're working out there, we're fighting for you. This is still a long shot. We've not got there. We've not managed to knock Alchemy off their perch, but we're working for you.
Longbridge workers who picketed today's talks also welcomed the new bid.
If Mr Towers comes along and he makes the company work, that's brilliant. But we still know that there'll be redundancies. But the people of Longbridge, what they want to be treated like human beings.
Tonight, BMW confirmed they were studying details of the Phoenix proposal. Terry Lloyd, ITN.
Japan and Norway today failed to overturn an international ban on the commercial trade in whales. 4 separate proposals to allow trade in some groups of grey and minke whales were rejected by members of the UN Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Both countries claimed controlled trade wouldn't have endangered whale populations. The leader of Zimbabwe's black war veterans today insisted he wouldn't order his followers off the white-owned farms that they're occupying. Riot police have stepped up their presence in the capital, Harare, but they stopped short of following a court order to clear the squatters from the land. Our Africa correspondent Tim Ewart reports.
The streets of Harare are quiet tonight, but this has been another tense and uneasy day in Zimbabwe. Riot police were out in force in the capital, surrounding areas where demonstrators have gathered in the past. Checkpoints were set up on all roads into Harare and cars were searched for weapons. There are reports that firearms have been confiscated from white farmers in some areas. The man orchestrating the farm seizures, war veterans leader Chenjerai Hunzi, was in belligerent mood. He refused to bow to a High Court ruling that the invasions should stop.
The redistribution of land must be speeded up. As I'm saying, before election, the fortunate part is that the date of election is not yet announced.
Opposition supporters gathered too. Their party is gaining ground but faces violent intimidation in many areas. Its leaders say the ruling ZANU-PF party will not allow free elections.
ZANU-PF is a party of a history of violence and blood. It is not a party that will give people the right to freely campaign. So we've known that right from the word go, and that's not going to hold us back.
President Mugabe arrives home from a summit in Cuba tomorrow. There have been signs in his absence that some cabinet ministers want to end the land seizures. But in this, as in everything else, Mr. Mugabe has the last word. Tim Ewart, ITN, Harare.
Hundreds of children marched on Downing Street today in a bid to ban smacking. They were trying to persuade Tony Blair, whose wife is expecting their 4th child next month, to back their cause. The demonstration was organised by the children's rights group Article 12. It follows government proposals earlier this year to tighten the law on assaults on children. The former Spice Girl Geri Halliwell has been talking about safe sex to teenagers at a United Nations youth conference.
I remember the massive pressure to lose your virginity. Everyone else seemed to have done it.
She was heckled by anti-abortion protesters who were quickly removed by security officers. The singer was speaking as part of her role as a UN Goodwill ambassador. Football players and fans all over England held a minute's silence today to mark the 11th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. There were special services in Liverpool and Sheffield. 96 people died at the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest in English football's worst tragedy. David Harrison reports.
Among the hundreds of floral tributes laid at Liverpool's Anfield Stadium, a bouquet of 96 red roses in memory of those who lost their lives. Friends and family of the victims, along with those who survived the tragedy, converged on Liverpool today.
We remember the people whose names and lives are written forever upon our hearts.
Every anniversary's been important to us, and it'll keep on being important to us. It's just, we all get together and we all commemorate our loved ones we lost at Hillsborough.
11 years ago to this day, and the worst disaster to befall British football. As the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest kicked off, fans were being crushed against the perimeter fence in the Hillsborough Stadium. At 6 minutes past 3 that day, the referee halted the game. A minute's silence was observed on Merseyside just after 3 o'clock, a silence replicated at the scene of the tragedy and at football grounds across the country. 11 years on from the Hillsborough disaster, and emotions still run high. David Harrison, ITN, Liverpool.
Remembering the tragedy of Hillsborough. Now, today's football, and Manchester United moved to within just 4 points of retaining their Premiership title after beating Sunderland 4-0 at Old Trafford. Several first-team players were rested, but it didn't matter. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got 2 of United's goals, the first after 2 minutes. Nicky Butt got the third midway through the second half. Henning Berg added the fourth. United are now 14 points clear at the top. Chelsea, one of the teams hoping to finish high enough to qualify for next season's Champions League, lost 1-0 at struggling Sheffield Wednesday. Wim Jonk got Wednesday's winner from the penalty spot. Chelsea's next game is at Barcelona on Tuesday. Hundreds of Tottenham fans protested outside White Hart Lane after Spurs lost 4-2 at home to Aston Villa. Tottenham were 2-0 up with half an hour to play, but Dion Dublin scored twice as Villa hit 4 in 11 minutes. Southampton all but secured Premiership survival with a 2-0 win over bottom club Watford. Marian Pahars came on as a substitute to score Southampton's second. Elsewhere, Coventry beat Middlesbrough 2-1, Derby lost to West Ham 2-1, Everton beat Bradford 4-0, and Newcastle lost to Leicester 2-0. In Scotland, Rangers will have to wait a little longer to clinch the Premier League title. Barry Ferguson opened the scoring in a 2-0 win at Dundee United, but Celtic's 2-2 draw with Dundee means the champagne has to stay on ice for another week. Rugby Union, Llanelli came out on top in the All-Welsh European Cup quarter-final today. They crushed Cardiff by 22 points to 3